What's going on, guys? Asian Guy here, bringing you the long-awaited tier list video for Legends in One Piece Treasure Cruise. Now, there's many changes coming along with my tier list videos now, so please do sit back, buckle up, and enjoy the video. Feel free to put it on 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed because there are going to be issues of me waffling or maybe taking a pause to try and process my thoughts before I say anything silly or anything stupid. But without further ado, let's get into it. We have new stipulations, we have new criteria, so please do hear me out. On that note, we also, just a brief note about what this hairband is because I don't want my hair to droop down in my eyes. It's my wife's hairband. This is not the kind of hairband I would normally wear, but this is the only hairband I have because I don't normally wear them. But that aside, we're in the middle of a heat wave in the UK and also a pandemic. I blocked out the sunlight as much as possible. It's just making my room overheat right now. And we also don't have the lights on because it's going to make my room overheat. 35 degrees. No, thank you. No, thank you. This is one of the reasons why tier list videos come out a bit slower because they take me over 1 hour to record and then maybe over 2 hours to edit as well because I want to make sure the volume levels are all correct, and if I say anything or if I slip up anywhere, I can edit that out or I can edit it with the text on the screen. But yeah, these kind of videos take a very long time. My butt gets really sweaty and we're all family here, so it's okay that I tell you that kind of stuff. Without further ado, let's get into the tier list video. So this was what it was before June 2020 when the anniversary hit with all the super type legends. My opinion on a lot of these has changed, and first of all, there's just way too many legends. There's almost 40 legends in the S tier. We're going to do some culling, we're going to do some eliminations for a lot of these legends, and the stipulations have changed and I streamlined them a lot more so it's easier to digest, especially because I have a lot of newcomers to the game now following the channel. Thank you to all of you guys who are subscribed to the channel, whether you're old or new, but I want to make this more easy to digest and easy to understand, and make sure, guys, that to understand, I think most people understand this anyway, but this is just my opinion, it's not factual. Whether I say a unit is trash or hot garbage, most of the time, you know, I'm exaggerating to just emphasize. So it's hyperbole. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but I don't think I have hyperbole, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, whatever that word is, that's what I'm doing when I say it's hot garbage or it's trash. They're not actually like the worst of the worst. That's not what I'm saying, but we'll get into it. Number one, this is going to be the most important priority for me, and this is going in descending order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Actually, 6 is technically number 1. Enjoy the video. But first place for the most important criteria, in my opinion, is usefulness and viability versus endgame content. Now, endgame is going to have a broad definition depending on what kind of player you are. But for me, it's like the newest Colosseums, the newest raids, new Garp challenges, new forests, all that kind of stuff, and Kizuna battle at very, very, very high levels. So at like, you know, whatever level 80 is, maybe it's like 150 million HP, that kind of stuff. Do those legends have that kind of damage, or can they facilitate that kind of damage in the end game content? So the difficult stuff in the game. Number 2 is relevance and future relevance to the game. I will expand on this when we get to the relevant legends that we're talking about, but a very brief example of this is, for example, let's look at 6+ Jimbei that just came out versus the Sci Bar Hancock, the newest super type legend. The relevance is night and day. I mean that Jimbei, he came out, he's like a boosted unit on the current Kizuna battle, and that's all he's really going to be good for, whereas the Boa Hancock got the 2 mini raids, the swimsuit Big Mom, and also the swimsuit Pudding, and on top of that got a Colosseum centered around her. All the Garp challenges that are Psy monotype ones are basically free reign for her. She can use a single team to beat all of them, and that's only something Kaido can do as well for any other color, and we'll get into that later on. And then she also has a blitz battle centered around her. Kizuna battle has a rotation centered around her as well. So that kind of relevance is pretty damning compared to any other legend. So yeah, future relevance to the game is, for example, you know, when Snake Man came out and how he was relevant for the next 2 years, like that. That's very, very good. That kind of stuff is very, very good. Accessibility. Now, this is like how paid to win you need to be to unleash the full potential of a legend. For example, the shooter class. The shooter class, if you rainbow them completely, you have max barrier penetration on all these units, and you limit break plus them, and you have all the limited rare recruits. They're not a bad class, but without that, and most people, I'm guessing 99.9% of people, are not going to invest all their resources, especially limit break plus, which is a very premium resource that you can't necessarily pay to win that easily. People are just not going to invest that into shooters, and therefore I cannot give those bonus points to shooters, which I used to do is the hypothetical stance on, you know, these shooter classes, these driven classes. If you have every single unit in the game, if you have them fully maxed out, and they're all on an even playing field, apologies for the drilling outside and construction, but if you have them all on an even playing field, then, you know, maybe shooters and driven and maybe even slashers can be a little bit better than what we realistically see them as. But for me, I think it's more important to stay grounded and be more realistic with these kind of expectations. Number 4, practicality versus hypothetical niche uses is basically what I just explained with accessibility. For example, on paper, when V3 Rayleigh came out, or when Pudding came out, or even when Nami and Robin or Onami came out, all of these legends look really, really good. They look great. Because hypothetically speaking, you can imagine so many different scenarios where they might come in useful. But the reality was, they weren't really high priority in any teams, and they weren't necessarily that useful against the content that we ended up receiving. So the practicality was essentially 0, but the hypothetical and niche uses were still high up there. But for me, I think it's more important to have practicality, and this ties into personal preferences, which is number 5. Something like speed and simplicity is very important to me because unfortunately I just don't have the time of day to, or I don't even have the willpower to play anywhere near as much OPTC as I used to. For example, man, that drilling is annoying, but V2 Katakuri, he is one of my favorite legends that have ever come out. However, nowadays I do not touch this legend at all. He's just too slow and I don't have the time of day to give for this legend. And for me, that is a really, really big dent in where I would rank him, because he's not a speedy legend. He's just a very time consuming legend, and it really depends on your personal playstyle and your personal preferences. I know I have a very, very diverse range of audience because we have very young people all the way from like 13 years old all the way up to like 40 years old, and I'm assuming most people who are past like the age of 20, 23, 24, they just don't have the same amount of time as they would have done when they were still in school or something like that, to play around with more legends, to be more creative with their teams. It's all about saving time, and anything that saves the investment of time, because time is money, is a big plus for people like myself and people like that. But then that kind of stuff is irrelevant to other people, so please do keep that in mind as well. And on that note, guys, the drilling is really, really annoying. Let's move on into the tier list. Alrighty guys, we are going to have, as I said, an S tier and an A tier, and I will try to walk you through my thought process by showing you guys my before and afters, especially between the S tier, and how I came to decide why it was time to finally do an A tier. Now again, apologies for the drilling in the background if you can hear it. There's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately, and I want to get this video out to you guys ASAP. So, this is what I had in June 2020. Now, up till yesterday, this is what I had changed it to for August 2020. But at the last moment, in the middle of the night, I decided, you know what? This is still just too many legends. If we count it up, that's 5 in the top row, then 9, then 12, then 16, 19, 22, then we have 26, then we have 30, then we have 34, and then in total we have 39 legends. It's just far too many legends, and I decided it's time we start culling. It's time we start removing legends from this so that we can now have a more concise, more streamlined S tier, which would only have 30 legends in there. So the top 30 legends is what we're going to be having later on in the video. But to showcase the differences and the changes that I originally thought of, this is what we're doing. We moved down the Super Type Kid, we moved down V1 Snake Man, we moved down Luffy Law, and the legends that went up were, Saba Mask went up. For me, in my opinion, he is now a top 5 legend, with Free Spirit just getting an astronomical amount of buffs and improvements in general. Their units are just getting better and better, and then on top of that, we have also moved up Saba and Koala for the same reason. It's just Free Spirits are just so good right now, and then everyone else is roughly the same. And on top of that, we have added Sugar into the S2, so the top brackets in S tier. So if we take a look again, let me hide this S tier. This is from June 2020 to August 2020, so a lot has changed. We did move V2 Big Mom back up originally, and we moved a bunch of new legends. The Rayleigh coming through there, he is a Free Spirit Cerebral unit, 2 of the best classes in the game. And he's also, if you do limit break plus him, I think a lot of people might choose to do so because his captain ability goes up to a 4.5 times universal attack boost. He's one of the better limit break pluses to have in the game, especially because he's also a very, very good PvP unit. So the base stats improved there are quite nice as well. But in general, yeah, guys, this was just too many legends in the S tier. So I'm going to first show you guys my finalized S tier, the top 30 legends. Do you see how big of a difference that is? Look how many legends were culled. The top 30 legends in the game, both useful and valuable, and they're gonna be relevant and stay relevant for a very long time. Again, PvP is not accounted in here because if PvP was accounted in here, then Shanks Crew and the V3 Law will be on a tier of their own because they're both fantastic in PvP. So let's start from going top down. This is not in rank order, by the way, guys. The way I've ordered this is in the order of Strength, Dex, Quick, Psi, and Int. So it's not in any kind of specific order other than that. So if it's on the left-hand side, that does not mean it's better than the units on the right-hand side. And then the right-hand column are units that excel as a sub, and then the left-hand side are units that excel as a captain. Now, of course, there are units that excel in both departments. In fact, all three departments of captain, sub, and also a support unit. And that has also been accounted for, which is why we have got the Corazon and the Rayleigh very, very high up still. And this is something I will get into in a moment. So we have got Snake Man, V2, we have got Shanks Crew, V3 Law, VV Rebecca, and Osoba Mask as, for me, my personal top 5 legends. If I had to go in rank order how I would rank these, this would be Shanks Crew number 1, then the V2 Snake Man probably number 2, V3 Law number 3, Osoba Mask number 4, and then VV and Rebecca number 5. That would be probably how I would rank my top 5 legends for overall usage in the game. And then the second row, we have got Douglas Bullet, who is still rocking strong. We have downgraded Luffy and Law. For me, Luffy and Law do not sit in the top 5 legends anymore. This might be a crazy statement for you guys, but it will probably sound a lot better when I say they're still easily top 10. Probably the 6th best legend in the game, but that is how I think about Luffy Law. I do think not being a free spirit or cerebral in their dual form, but only in their singular form, really does hurt them a lot. We have got Sugar, who is a newcomer to the tier list. We've got Chopper, who is still, as always, very useful. In fact, becoming more and more useful because Psy legends are getting a lot of love right now. And then we have got Saba and Koala, who have bumped up to S2. We've got Corazon and Ray still there as 2 of the most useful legends, especially support units in the game. Then we have Kaido and Boa Hancock as the only 2 captains there in S3. We've got Mihawk and Perona. We have also got Cracker, and we have got V2 Shanks there. And those 3 are mainly there because they are the kings of Kizuna Kessen, or Kizuna Battle. And I have downgraded V2 Big Mom, and I'll get into that later on as well. I'll elaborate on all of these in a moment, guys, but right now I just want to give like a TLDR of why and where I've put all these legends. We have got Super Type Kid all the way down in S4, down from S2 or S3. We have also got the Stampede Luffy. We've got the V2 Blackbeard. And then we have got 2 very good or pretty good captains, pretty good subs, but very good support units in Deadbeard and also the Halloween Ace. Very useful subs. I really wish I do have, or I can get that Deadbeard one day. I still don't have him. That would be very nice to obtain. And then falling from S2 all the way down to S5, it's V1 Snake Man, who is Powerhouse Fighter, and I think those classes just aren't... If he was still Free Spirit, he would be much higher up, but unfortunately, I think he has fallen off a little bit. We also have got the Luffy Zorro, which might seem a bit low to you guys, but bear in mind, guys, the differences between like S5, S4, and S3 are really small, and only small things like relevance really do change the margins there. We've got Carrot there in S5 as well. And then we've got V2 Rayleigh as well as V2 Big Mom in S5 for the sub units / support units. Number 6, row 6, we've got the Buggy and the Jack there. These are quality of life legends, which I will always keep in S tier because I think everyone has a soft spot for these quality of life legends, which would be, in my opinion, Kaido, Carrot, Chopper, Jack, and Buggy. These are like the 5 quality of life legends that can really change your game around, especially if you're looking to farm stuff efficiently or save time or save stamina, etc. And then last but not least, it's Nami and Robin. Well, to be honest, she probably is. They probably are least in this top 30. So We're not going to rank them from 1 to 30 because that's something I haven't really thought about. I think a lot of these legends would share joint positions, and that's why we have them all on the same row. Let's begin with the very best legends in the game. So V2 Snake Man, usefulness and viability versus endgame content, through the roof. He's literally good against everything. He beats the last 2 Colosseums we've had. Even Colosseum Gukimaru, who is a quick type, he's able to beat all of this stuff. It's very, very, very nice. Even the Dex ones, where the boss was quick, I think it was Colosseum King, Snake Man could actually beat it as well. So very, very, very good. Not that I recommend doing it. The viability side there is not necessarily great, but the usefulness is still up there, and he is able to take out, or it's rather the usefulness is a bit down, but the viability is still through the roof for the Snake Man, especially for endgame content. He's definitely able to hit those big damage numbers. He's still, in my opinion, the best legend to run into Garp challenges and forests. He's easiest to make teams for. Accessibility is through the roof, very free to play friendly. His relevance to the game, very high. His future relevance to the game is extremely high. I think this legend is not going to be outdated until 2022. So for me personally, I think he's really, really high up there. His practicality is also through the roof as well. Not just his hypothetical and niche uses, because even his hypothetical and niche uses also very, very high up. His speed and simplicity, he's a very simple legend as well. So for me, personal preferences wise, he's just up there. Top 3 legend, very, very easy, a top 3 legend. And to top it off, not only is he amazing as a captain, he's also one of the best subs in the game. 2.5 times orb boost with orb manipulation. Unfortunately, doesn't change block orbs, but makes all other orbs into matching orbs. It's one of the best specials in the game by far. It's a universal special, and you just can't count that out. He's a top tier captain, top tier sub as well. And that goes exactly the same for Shanks Crew, who I think is the best legend in the game. If you want to account for PvP as well, by far the best legend in the game. Captain ability, top notch. Switch ability, top notch. As a sub, top notch. In Kizuna battle as a sub, top notch. Even as a captain, top notch. Universal 4.5 times. And even in base forms, because of the switches, you have regular income, or you have a regular flow of matching orbs, which is more damage. You have the 1.5 times attack boost from the switch, which is more damage. And yeah, just as a captain and as a sub, amazing, amazing unit, if not the best unit in the game. Sorry for hitting the mic there, but I think everyone knows that Shanks Crew is, for everyone, he should be in the top 3 legends, or they should be in the top 3 legends. If you don't have Shanks Crew in your top 3 legends, I don't know what your criteria are, but they're vastly, vastly different from mine. V3 Law. Now this one might be a bit controversial. Some people don't like him. I personally think he is usefulness really, really high. Even as a sub, guys, he's one of the gods of Kizuna battle now in terms of being a sub. He has a chain lock, orb boost, and insane orb manipulation, and he even has a good support ability to boot. And his captain ability can be a flat 4.5 times, but at the very lowest is a flat 4 times, which is the highest out of all the legends in all of this, you know, in this category at the top here. Even in the top 2 rows, flat 4 times. The only other unit to have it is Douglas Bullet. Everybody else has to obtain it by using a switch or using their special. Otherwise, it's V2 Snake Man, who comes second in 3.75 times universal boost, and then 5 times the strength units. And that, for me, for the law, it's really, really good. I think people underestimate that. The damage reduction is captain ability is absurd. It's like 42, 44%, something like that. It might even be over 50% if you have certain ships. And it goes up to 60 if you have the switch units of like Barto and Cavendish, or you have, what's their name? Ivankov and Bonclay. So either way, you're going to have well over 50% damage reduction. And the newest ship that came out is just another huge bonus. And the newest ship actually works for all of these legends, I believe, in the top, maybe even the top 2 rows. The new ship, the X-Drake ship, is a very, very good ship. It's the best ship in the game, in my opinion, guys. Everyone should spend 30 gems to get it, but it basically buffed all of these units, so that's a very nice addition to the game. I think this Law, he's amazing for Forest. He's very good for Colosseum. I think he's going to stay extremely relevant in the future because he's going to be good for future Garp challenges. All of them, I think he's going to be excelling in all of them. He's very, very simple and straightforward to play with. And on top of that, I think he's going to be one of the best Kizuna battle subs in the game, which is something I personally prioritize, especially for having that big amount of damage. And if you compare it to someone like Luffy Law with the 2.5 times orb boost, but unfortunately, Outside of the switchability, they only offer some beneficial orbs, a tiny bit of damage, you know, like 800k if you're in Luffy form, or like 200 fixed damage that goes through barriers, etc., which is nice AoE, but it's not that great when you compare it to the 2.25 times orb boost, which might be lower, but the chain lock, the chain boosted lock that the Law has is absurd. It's absolutely disgusting. And then on top of that, the insane orb manipulation that this Trafalgar Law has cannot go under the rug. People are sleeping on it. I'm telling you, people are sleeping on how good this Law special is, and the fact that he boosts strikers, and he's not a striker, it's not that big of a deal. He doesn't boost, he is not a striker himself, but he boosts strikers, free spirits, and fighter units. Now, if we were to look at this top bracket of units in the game, he can use V2 Snake Man. He unfortunately cannot use Shanks Crew, but he can use VV Rebecca. Strikers have all the Nami units in the game, some of the best utility units in the game. Osama Mask is a beautiful sub to use on this V3 Law, and then you can also use a bunch of other units like Saba, Koala. You can use the Corazon, you can use the Rayleigh, which is another big one because Rayleigh is a fighter slasher, not a cerebral. He's a fighter slasher. He pairs up so nicely with a Saba Mask. You have that infinite cooldown loop. Not necessarily infinite, but you have that absurd cooldown loop because both of these units have the Sailor ability that reduces their cooldown if any other units use a special. So that's very nice, and they all work on this V3 Law team. So you have your guaranteed attack boost, guaranteed orbs, you've got your guaranteed chain boost, you've got the guaranteed chain lock, you've got the orb boost as well, and then to top it off you have absurd utility with that Rayleigh. Just those three units together is disgusting, and then you can slap on two other very good units. So yes, I think this V3 Law, top 3 legend overall in the game. Maybe not a top 3 captain, but an overall legend. And if you definitely want to count for PvP, he's easily top 3. If you're accounting for PvP, he's easily top 3. But without PvP, I think he's still a strong contestant for top 3. Strong captain, very high multiplier, very safe to play with because damage reduction is absurd. He boosts a lot of very good classes. Free Spirit, the best class in the game. Striker, one of the best classes for utility. And then fighters have also got very nice units in there as well. And the batch units that came out with him, the Sabo and the Luffy, are also both very good for him as well. To top it off, we have got, or to end it off the top 5, we've got the 2 best subs in the game, which in my opinion are going to be Vivi Rebecca and also the Osaba Mask. And the reason for this is Vivi and Rebecca, I've said it all the time, guys, they just unlock so many teams, especially for a personal preference point of view. They unlock all the difficult endgame teams you need to run into, like GARP challenges, and in general they're also very good subs on so many different teams for removing defense up or percent damage reduction on enemies infinite amount of turns, which is just, it's just not something that's so easy to replace. Their switch ability is one of the most broken in the game. Flat 2.5 times chain lock, which doesn't count as a debuff as well. So that's very nice. Orb manipulation in there and heals you HP at the end of the turn. It's a really, really, really good switch ability. And being cerebral is also a nice bonus. If they were cerebral free spirit, now that would be disgusting. That would be disgusting, but they are cerebral striker, which is very nice with that V3 Law, of course. And then we have got Osaba Mask, who I would place in 4th place, slightly above Vivi and Rebecca. I do think this Osaba Mask is saying a lot more gameplay. People are being more creative with their teams, and they are whipping on the most brain-dead sub in the game, which is Osaba Mask in their GARP challenge teams. He is now excelling supremely in Kizuna battle for the endgame damage, that 2.5 times universal attack boost, a full board of guaranteed orbs. Cannot be discounted. It's just too good. The future relevance, he is probably the legend with the most relevance in the future, because 2.5 times attack boost, that's not going to get topped anytime soon, especially with orb manipulation. It's disgusting. So yeah, overall, that would be my top 5 legends. The Osaba Mask as well is a very good captain. He's not the best captain in the game. I would not say he's probably towards the latter of the top 10 captains. Might not even be a top 10 captain anymore, but he's still a great captain. He's still a great support, and he is arguably the best sub in the game beside that Vivi and Rebecca. So future relevance wise, he's just through the roof. Usefulness is through the roof. Viability, through the roof. Practicality, through the roof. And for my personal preferences of speed and simplicity, through the roof. So all of these legends in all of those regards are basically, you know, 100 out of 100. or at least 95 out of 100 score. So I think these legends just, they cannot be topped in their respective positions. Let's move down to S2. So S2 is Douglas Bullet, Luffy Law, Sugar. We've got Chopper, we've got Saba and Koala, we've got Corazon, and we've got Rayleigh. Now, this is going to be the interesting part here, because a lot of people probably do feel a lot of these legends are worthy of top 5. And I would say the difference between S1 and S2 is quite small, other than maybe Shanks Crew and V2 Snake Man, who would probably sit on a throne by themselves. So let's start with Douglas Bullet. Now, Douglas Bullet is a legend that has proven time and time again he cannot be counted out in terms of relevance and future relevance, because having rainbow damage against anyone is truly busted, especially at a 4.75 times attack boost to himself. However, his usefulness, I would say, overall in the game, because as a sub he doesn't really excel. As a support, he's a really good support. As a base stat boost, he's one of the best supports in the game, but I would say the only thing he's lacking here is him excelling as a sub. If he excelled as a sub, then I would easily be able to put him on the same level as the V2 Snake Man, as the Shanks Crew, and also as the V3 Law, because all of those units are fantastic as both a captain and a sub. For me, this Douglas Bullet is only fantastic as a captain, and as we have seen, we're getting more barriers. We are getting a bit more normal attack only. I'd say we get a decent amount of normal attack only. It's not prevalent everywhere, but it is still prevalent, especially in stuff like Garp challenges and Forest, which is always going to be a permanent thing that he will struggle with. I think that's the only reason where he falls short, because everywhere else, flat 4 times attack boost, beneficial orbs, a crap ton of HP, universal damage boost or color affinity against everyone, is absurd. He's still one of the best captains in the game. I would still label him as a top 5 captain in the game. So that is Douglas Bullet. That's my take on Douglas Bullet. S2, a strong S2. Luffy Law, I have downgraded them from the top 5. They're probably like the 6th best, maybe 7th best legend in the game. But Luffy Law, I would say, in their base form, is already an L. Like, their captain abilities in their base form, the attack boost is just not high enough. I don't think they have, you know, their orb manipulation is not that great. Their switch ability is nice, but the usefulness is, I don't think, on par with any of the 3 captains above them. Like, if you think about it, to get the most, sorry for burping there, excuse me, to get the most out of this Luffy and Law, you really do need to start relying more and more on the switches, and I just think that's a very, very tedious thing. And you have to plan the switches as well. Unlike with Shanks Crew, you just brain dead switch. You get to get that 1.5 times attack boost whenever you want. You got damage reduction, you got higher attack boost at 3.5 times with the 1.5 times attack boost. Their attack boost is only a singular boost. It gives themselves an orb, which is nice, but I gotta say, I just don't see them on the same level, especially with the classes being fighter slasher. I think that is the one thing that really, really holds them back. And to top it off, they are Luffy and Law. Now, Luffy and Law, before, it's really nice because you can use all of their supports. But now we have this V3 Law. We have other good laws in the game as well. If you have Luffy and Law separated, that's also a big plus. So, for me, unfortunately, I think Luffy and Law have fallen off. We have other Dex and quick units coming through as well, which are superb. The 2.5 times orb boost is still superb. That's why they are still in the top 10 legends. But for me, I have to take them out of the top 5. I do not think they are going to be as relevant. I think they are still very, very relevant to the game. They still have relevancy in the future, but compared to the other units in the top 5, I don't think their relevancy to the game will be on the same level. That's my take. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, because I know a lot of people are big Luffy and Law fans. I personally think they are a bit more tedious to play with. Their speed and simplicity is not on the same level as any of the legends above them. So yeah, that's my take on it. Their practicality essentially has dropped down. We have now got Sugar. Now, Sugar, controversial legend. A lot of people will put her as the best legend in the game. Some people will have her in the top 3. For me, she's towards the lower ends of the top 10. Her kit is superb. Don't get me wrong. Her kit, her super typing is superb. But at the same time, I don't think her practicality is anywhere near as high as some of the other legends. And by practicality, I mean on paper, she looks amazing. Hypothetical niche or creative uses wise, she's amazing. But if you want speed and you want simplicity, then I know a lot of people will misconstrue what I mean by simplicity as making perfects easier to hit, but what I mean is speed and creating your teams very, very quickly. I think the Sugar is definitely lacking compared to the others. I think the same problem continues with the Luffy Law here, is that without using their captain ability or without using switch abilities or whatever, without relying on some sort of other mechanic, the base boost is just really not that pretty to look at. She has 4.5 times to herself, but if you want to bring legends along, you're gonna need to rely on a 3 times attack boost, which is not something I'm a big fan of. Same thing with Luffy Law, the attack boost is just a bit too low for me in their base form. Everyone else has a lot higher. If you start switching with Shanks Crew, I know people will say Shanks Crew, sorry for hitting the mic, Shanks Crew will only have 3.5 or 3.25, but you got to remember, with the switch in every single turn, it's like their attack boost is a lot higher than that, especially if you're taking on mini bosses or fodder stages, especially in longer things like Garp challenges and Forest as well. Now, I know Luffy and Law and Sugar and even Bullet can clear these things, but the simplicity and how straightforward it is to clear these difficult pieces of content is definitely, and no one can change my mind on this, on the same level as V2 Snake Man, the V3 Law, and the Shanks Crew. These 3 legends are so straightforward in how to take out these Garp challenges, these forests. Every other legend, you need to have like some very, very creative teams, or you need to be very patient with stalling. Some of them might even, have no room for error. Like one switch will screw you up. If you make a mistake with switching one unit on one turn, that's it. Your run's screwed up. I personally don't like that kind of stuff. So for me, that's why these 3 legends, again, Bullet, Luffy Law, and Sugar, they fall a little bit short. And I think on top of that, a lot of people look at her kit and they're like, easier perfects, that's nice. Chain boost, a base 2500 attack boost, ignores a lot of debuffs, is very, very nice, and goes through barriers. Does not go through defensive abilities, but goes through barriers. It's very, very nice indeed, but what we've seen from the content is that, realistically speaking, how often are we going to have that? How often are we going to have a stage which has a barrier, which has all these debuffs that we need to ignore? Realistically speaking, that's not going to happen every single month. So I don't see her future relevance at the same level as the other legends in the top bracket. I do still see her as a useful legend, because I think she's still going to be useful all the way to 2021. Even as a sub, I still see her as a very useful legend. That's why she makes it into the top 10. But for me, I don't think she's top 3. Let me know your thoughts and opinions once again. Let's move on to Chopper. Now, Chopper, his future relevance is just unparalleled. Cotton Candy, now we have PvP. More than ever, I'm always lacking on Cotton Candy because we have more Cotton Candy now. We need to have more Cotton Candy now. We have plus 600 as the maximum cap for all units in the game, and if it's plus 600, that's more than doubled what we had before, because it was 200 before. It's now tripled. So the cotton candy income, or how much cotton candy we really want to have on our units, has essentially tripled. So having Chopper, who doubles cotton candy intake, is really nice. He's a good captain as well, 3.5 times universal attack boost. A lot of people do run Chopper with a powerful friend captain in Colosseums to try and boost as much cotton candy as they can get. And even as a sub, he has seen an increase in usage because his utility as a sub is superb. So for me, Chopper is a top tier captain and also a top tier sub. And he's obviously not the most powerful legend in the game compared to the others on the same road, but his usefulness is by far arguably top 1. If you want cotton candy, if you're an end game player, cotton candy is the #1 thing you should be looking for. It's the #1 commodity in the game you should be looking for, especially if you enjoy PvP. Cotton candy, really important. So for me, he is easily top 1 in that regard. Let's move on to Saba, Koala, Rayleigh, and also Corazon. Saba, Koala, top tier captain. I would not say their captain is anywhere near as strong as the first 3 there in the V2 Snake Man, Shanks Crew, and also Law, and then also the first 3 here in the second row, which is going to be the Douglas Bullet, Luffy Law, and also the Sugar. I don't think their captain ability is anywhere strong. It's still a good captain. Free Spirit and Cerebral, the 2 best class in the game, but at the same time, I do think they are slightly lacking in terms of power, going up to like a maximum of like a 4 point something, 4.2, 4.3, something like that. It's a ramping up ability, which is something I'm not the biggest fan of, but they do have a 2.25 times attack boost. Or manipulation, they have color affinity, they remove the very annoying debuff of having badly matching or badly beneficial orbs. I don't know what's the opposite of beneficial, I don't know, but their special is very, very useful. It unlocks essentially every free spirit team that you're gonna use against Garp challenges or forests. Probably requires Saba and Koala because their special is so good. Their switch ability is really, really good. Gives themselves an orb, color affinity boost to Cerebral and free spirit units. Again, the best class in the game, so you cannot count that out. Now these two, the controversial two that a lot of people I think severely underrate or underappreciate. This is going to be Corazon and Ray. I think these two legends are absurdly underrated. And the way I think people should look at it is like this. If you had, let's say, if you had every legend in the game and they were forcing you, okay, let's not say every legend in the game. If you had every legend on this page, guys, this S tier page, say you have every legend on this page and they forced you to eliminate 2 legends from your box that you will never see again in the future and you will never be able to use them again. For me personally, I am not eliminating Corazon or Rayleigh because their support abilities are absurdly useful. They're like the most used supports I personally use. Rayleigh is a sub, even Corazon is a sub I use every now and then. I'm just not, their usefulness is through the roof. It's absurd. It's absolutely crazy, stupendous even. I'm not ever going to replace these 2 units for especially anyone beneath them. I would happily sacrifice any of the legends beneath them to save myself the Corazon and Rayleigh. And I think the people who can truly appreciate this are the ones who have been playing for like 500, 600, even over 1,000 days, and they have unfortunately not been able to pull Rayleigh or Corazon. So many teams are locked behind having this Rayleigh or having this Corazon, and I say it every single tier list video, these 2 legends, they are essentially necessary for like 50% of Luffy or Law teams. If you don't have them, then bang. Half of the teams out of the window, you can't even use them. So I think these 2 are so underrated, not just for their support, even as a sub, especially Rayleigh. He's really good on like Blackbeard teams, he's really good on the V3 Laws teams, he's just very good overall in many places. We're moving into a meta now where we're seeing 7-turn debuffs are starting to sneak back into the game. And what does Rayleigh do? He removes 7 turns of Bind, Despair, Paralysis, makes Perfects easier to hit, and he has a lot of cooldown reduction with his Sailor ability. I think this Rayleigh's future relevance is actually going to go up. He might even potentially, guys, absurdly, might even make it into the top 5 legends. That's a stretch, I know right now, but 2021, who knows? Who knows? If the buffs keep getting worse and worse, then Rayleigh's just going to get better and better and better. And the need for support units is just going to increase more and more and more. Same thing with Corazon as well. I think people also forget this Corazon. If you're not going to use him on a Law team, you can actually use a V2 Law support on him, which will give him an additional 1.75 times orb boost for the entire team, which is a really nice thing. A crap ton of utility, a 1.75 times universal orb boost. Very nice combination. I think a lot of people sleep on that as well. But for me, Corazon and Rayleigh, extremely underrated legends, extremely underappreciated because we've pulled them so many times. People are frustrated of seeing them. I think they forget that if you never pulled these legends, imagine not having these legends in your box. Think of the world of pain and suffering and how many teams you normally use will suddenly be locked away because you don't have these 2 units. And I would not sacrifice them for anyone, especially beneath them. So these are 2 legends I really think people need to put some more love on and give more respect to. That is the S2, guys. That is like what I would say are the top 10 legends. I know I have more than 10 legends in there, but I would say all of these legends are around the joint level of usefulness, viability, future relevance. So these are the top 10 legends in my opinion. Number 3, let's move down to S3, S4, S5, and S6. I think I'm going to start blasting through this because this has been very long already. Kaido, speed running king. there's not much else to say. Really good for the easier Garp challenges. He's one of the legends that doesn't require you to change your team at all when you run him into monotype Garp challenges, which is something that's going to be coming to global in the future. But on Japan, we have challenges where you need to run a full strength team, a full dex team, full Sci, in quick team, blah 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 blah, etc etc. And Kaido and Boa Hancock, these two are the only two legends where you don't have to tweak your team whatsoever. I don't think there's any other legend in the game where you don't have to change maybe 1 or 2 subs, or you need to change a certain support. With this Boa Hancock and the Kaido, there are teams, multiple teams that you can actually run under these two captains that can blast through all of those Garp challenges without having to change anything at all, and I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, Kaido, his usefulness is coming in speed running. He's more like a quality of life legend. He's not very viable against the very endgame content, high level Kizuna battle. He doesn't really facilitate anything there against endgame Colosseums. If he's good in doing, you know, the stage 1s and stage 2s, but for the actual 50 stamina, he's not that useful unless it's like a quick unit. And then we've got the Boa Hancock, who is right now arguably the best legend in the game, only because of all the events centered around her. But I think her future relevance is going to dwindle. The fact that she doesn't go through full debuff protection is a real kick in the nuts. I think that's very unfortunate. Every single Garp challenge, you know, doesn't have, when I say every single one, every single 10 start Garp challenge doesn't have a single stage of full debuff protection, which is why she's so good. She can infinitely stall on every single stage in those Garp challenges. However, with the difficult Garp challenges, the 13-star ones, you do get full debuff protection. You get enemies doing stuff on like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Even if it's not their attack turn, they will still debuff you. So unfortunately there, I do think she falls a little bit backwards. She's still a good legend to run in those difficult Garp challenges, but outside of that, she's also a legend comparatively to Eustace Captain Kidd. They're very similar in what they do. They get rid of blockers, they give 2.5 times attack boost to their classes, to their respective units, to their respective typings, but Boa has the advantage of not having a negative class. She's neutral to everyone, and on top of that, her super typing also includes the attack boost, whereas Kidd only includes the orb manipulation. But on that note, I do think the Boa is very good. She might potentially move up into S2 if you want to account for PvP. She's also a very good PvP unit, but I think her future usability, I can see her being outdated by 2021. Whereas the other legends up there, I think will all still be useful in 2021, towards the end of 2021, bordering onto 2022. I think most of those legends will still be very relevant and very useful. But for Boa Hancock and also Kaido, I can see them dwindling off a little bit, and that their usefulness will only be, you know, existing in forests and Garp challenges and not so much Colosseums or Kizuna battles, etc. etc. We have got Mihawk and Perona, we have got V2 Shanks, and we have got Cracker. These 3 units, in my opinion, are the go-to units now for Kizuna battle. Not Shanks Crew, sorry. The Mihawk and Perona, while they're not necessarily that useful or viable as a captain, there's many different alternatives which are far better. They are cerebral driven. Cerebral is very nice. Surprisingly not a slasher, even though it's a Mihawk unit, but I think that this unit has been proven time and time again by Subconsi and other content creators to be a very useful unit to have where there is no debuff protection or where there's enemies with multiple stages. Their switchability is a very very nice switchability to have, and then their special becomes extremely useful. But anywhere else with full debuff protection, I think they do take a huge hit or a huge L, just like the Boa Hancock and just like Kaido would do in normal attack only, but those are in very selective instances. So I think this Mihawk and Perona, their switchability is really nice. We have seen more content not having full debuff protection, but rather having specifically delay protection, rather having toxic or poison immunity, that kind of stuff, and not having full debuff protection. I think that's very nice. That makes Mihawk and Perona a lot more viable. So yeah, I think these two, I underrated them before, and I think they deserve to be in S3. Cracker and V2 Shanks, I think, is a no-brainer. They're like god tier damage units. Orb manipulation is god tier. Their captain ability is not necessarily that amazing, but, you know, even as a support, they're pretty good. So yeah, S3, solid S3. They're both very good supports as well. Let's move on to S4. Right, now S4, this is where things get a little bit tricky, because I think this is where personal preference comes into play a lot more, and also relevance. I think a lot of people sleep on the importance of relevance. This kid on paper is amazing. He's amazing for any quick bosses that may come out. But are we getting quick content to beat? No, we're not. So his relevance is essentially non-existent right now. His support ability is nice, but his support ability is also not too relevant. So yes, unfortunately for me, this kid, his relevance has dwindled significantly, but his future relevance, whenever we get quick content, he's going to be your go-to legend alongside Kaido, especially if there's normal attack only, then this kid is 100% going to be the best legend to use in that instance. Same thing for Stampede Luffy. His relevance actually has gone up because Psy units are receiving a lot of love right now. I think he's always going to stay relevant for Garp challenges, especially the mono Psy teams. He gets rid of very annoying debuffs and paralysis and also special silence, despair. So I think that's a huge W. And then Blackbeard, I mean, Blackbeard is he's gonna be able to beat almost everything with just sheer power and damage. But the downside is he's just very slow in that regard. If you want to have that maximum damage against non-Psy units, then you are gonna have to stall him all the way up to the stage 3 of his damage boost. So I think in that regard, that speed and simplicity there really is a bit lacking. But I do think he's a very fun legend. Unfortunately though, fun legend, all 3 of these units I think are actually really fun legends to play with. The Kid, the Luffy, and the Blackbeard. But for me, I don't think funness is something I can really compare or add in as a bonus system for the tier list. They are fun legends, don't get me wrong guys, I really enjoy using them, but in terms of usefulness, viability, relevance, accessibility, practicality, they're just not on the same level as the ones above them. That's my take. Again, let me know your thoughts and opinions. I think a lot of people will be upset about Blackbeard being there. Don't get me wrong though guys, that's not low at all. He's still a top 20 legend, and I think being a top 20 legend out of 100 plus legends is still a solid achievement, especially when you're a mono type legend. We've got Deadbeard and we've got Halloween Ace. Not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but these two are good units. They are good captains. They are good supports. They are good subs as well. In fact, they're amazing supports. Apologies, I misspoke there. They are some of the best supports in the game. Whitebeard reduces 3 turns of despair, which is way more useful than the 2 turns, because sometimes that just leaves you 1 turn extra missing, and the 3 turns there is really nice, and you can specifically target despair. It doesn't activate like Rayleigh or Corazon does if like maybe paralysis hits you or bind hits you, and you don't even want to get rid of paralysis or bind, but instead you want to get rid of specifically despair, then that Whitebeard is your go-to. And the same thing with Ace, but for bind. If you want to specifically get rid of bind, then this Ace is your go-to, and he goes on Luffy as well. So really good support. Goes on Saba as well. And also, they're both solid captains, really good captains. I would say they would make it into like an S6 or S5 position as captains. Maybe Whitebeard would be A tier as a captain, but even as a sub as well, they're very good units. Big boost, big damage boost. So I don't think they can be counted out as well. S4 I think is a reasonable position for them because they don't go on too many teams, and their main usage nowadays is really as a support. So that's why I wouldn't put them on the same level as, for example, the other subs or supports above them. S5, we have got the legendary V1 Snake Man, who has dropped down significantly. I personally think he's still somewhat relevant, but I think his usefulness has dropped down a lot. I would say before, in the past, like maybe 4 months ago, you'd look at Snake Man and you'd be like, yeah, he's still like one of the 3, 4, 5 best legends to use as your captain in any piece of content. But nowadays, I think he struggles to maintain that spot. He's definitely not one of the first legends you think of when team building. He's not one of the legends you want to rely on immediately speaking. Even if you're leeching, I think that's the only place he still shines. Now, if you're trying to leech off another friend captain, he's still superb in that regard. But Double Snake Man especially is a no bueno in my opinion. I think because of that special as well, you need to have the 2 Snake Mans activated for the full damage boost, and then on top of that, they give an orb boost which continues into the next turn. It's not that useful to have double Snake Man. And the same thing goes for, unfortunately, Luffy and Zorro. Luffy and Zorro being Free Spirit Slasher is really nice, but the only good class out of that is honestly Free Spirit, which restricts which units they can really use. And their captain ability is nice. They do cap at 4 times, but they have the Wa Orbs, and the Wa Orbs are very good. Don't get me wrong, but to get those Wa Orbs, unless you're bringing along Osoba Mask or you're bringing along someone else, is a bit tedious. Their switchability, I think, could have been a lot better if they just got rid of Despair completely instead of having the 1 turn removal. I think it would have just been better if they just completely got rid of it. And unfortunately, I think their special, it's one of those specials that ramps up, and it's only good for free spirit and slasher units. So on that note, double Luffy Zorro is not great. You will often see Luffy Zorro paired up with Saba and Koala, but I think the main unit there in that pairing is normally Sabo and Koala. But Luffy Zorro is still a solid unit. If you want to account for PvP, they would be much higher up. I would probably put them in S2, maybe S3, if you wanted to account for PvP. And that actually goes with Carrot as well, because Carrot is a godlike unit in PvP. But Carrot, right now, relevance-wise, really not in the best position, but because of that captain ability, her future relevance will always be one of those unparalleled ones. Unless Blackbeard V1 has some sort of mega revitalization, this Carrot, if she can beat content, and I say this every single time, she is most likely going to be by far the fastest unit to clear content, and a personal preference thing for me is speed. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's an incredibly efficient unit to run. So I think she will always remain in S tier, but towards the lower end of S tier. So that's where she's coming through. And going back to the Luffy Zorro and also the Snake Man, I think they will always have some sort of relevance as a friend captain or as a captain to leech with. But I think that's where they really cap out. I don't think their efficiency or practicality is necessarily too high anymore, which is a shame. And I still want to pull Luffy Zorro, especially for PvP as well. We've got the V2 Rayleigh and the V2 Big Mom. Both of these units are very good subs, but I would say their usage has fallen off. Rayleigh has obviously gone up because he wasn't in S tier before. If you limit break plus him, I think this Rayleigh could easily be S4, especially as a captain. Universal 4.5 times attack boost. But we're talking about practicality. How many people are really going to limit break plus this Rayleigh? And how many people are going to have friend captains with limit broken plus Rayleighs as well? But as a sub, a flat 3 times chain lock and a universal 2 times orb boost. Very nice. And if you're under 50% HP, which is nowhere near as bad as it used to be, which was under 30%. If you're under 50% HP, very solid, because you know, that's a lot easier to obtain. It's also a lot more comfortable to obtain that. And on the flip side, Big Mom, to get her chain boost and to get her boost in general, you need to have her above 50%. And we have seen content that does like to knock you down under that. In Kizuna, that's a little bit more tricky to play around with, and unfortunately, despite being an int unit, she doesn't really work well with the super type Katakuri, because the super type Katakuri, you need to be under 50% HP, and that doesn't work well at all, ironically, with her mother whatsoever. So yeah, V2 Big Mom, she is still a top tier sub for Kizuna battle, but I do think we are getting a lot more better chain boosters or chain lockers, and there's a lot more variety that we can have there, and her classes wise, not too great. So that is her one drawback as well, and she's terrible as a captain. But otherwise, still a S tier unit, and I think she does deserve to be in S tier, top 30 units. And then last but not least, we have got the 2 quality of life legends in Jack and Buggy. They're both personal preference units, whether you like to duplicate PvP flags or PvP scrolls, or you want to duplicate candy, or you want to duplicate any other kind of important materials that you might have from like 30 gem ship islands or any daily islands, then Buggy is your go-to, one of the most used legends in that regard. Jack, if you have nothing to farm and you can farm it with Jack, free EXP means more stamina, means more refills. Jack is a superb legend in that regard, and he's a good support for Kaido, but that's pretty much it. Then we have Nami and Robin. Nami and Robin, for me, is personal preference wise one of the worst captains to run. Is so tedious to play with, so unenjoyable to play with, and they're just slow because you have to really pay attention to your switching. You mess up one switch, you have to reset the game, and with loading times taking anywhere up to 3-4 minutes, that's just miserable. I'm not a big fan of that, but they are still a very good sub. 2.5 times orb boost, 10 turns paralysis reduction, and a chonky HP cut is nothing to laugh about. So Nami and Robin, still very strong. And of course, Nami being Nami, Robin being Robin, have really good supports at their disposal as well. You've got Barto, who can reduce 3 turns of paralysis. You've got the Carrot, which is one of the best supports in the game. Reduces 2 turns of defense up when you hit a perfect. So I think that's a very nice unit, especially to run as a sub for Dex teams or int teams as well. Very nice on that regard. And yeah, that is the S tier, guys. That was a very, very long portion of S tier. And we're just getting started because we now move on to A tier. Now, feel free to completely skip A tier because a lot of these units, in my opinion, for a lot of people are now obsolete. And that's not saying they're trash. It just means they are lucky enough to own a lot of better units. We got 30 legends in S tier. Think of all the units that could have broken into S tier if we had maybe 40 units instead in S tier. But if you are going to end the video here, thank you very much for watching. Again, apologies, this has taken so long to come out. Apology, I'm sweating. I'm wearing a hairband with a little pink bow tie in it. But I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you're going to stick around, we have got more discussion, which is going to be A tier. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. These are the top 30 legends, in my opinion, in the game in August 2020. This is the S tier. Let's move on to the A tier. And thank you if you're going to end it there. Bye-bye. Alrighty guys, maybe my position on the bow has changed, I'm not really sure, but I had just taken a break to get some ice cream because I am so boring. I had to change my shirt as well. It was an Elizabeth shirt, and now it's another Elizabeth shirt. I can't show you guys any further than that because I'm not wearing any pants right now. No, I'm kidding. I'm wearing boxers, but only boxers. Anyway, let's move on to the A tier. I'm reinvigorated, so suddenly, if the video is a lot louder, apologies, but it's because I took a bit of a break before recording the second part of the video. Let's move on to A tier. Now, A tier is going to upset a lot of people because I have not put Smoker or the Katakuri Super Type Legends in S tier. For me personally, man, they got bummed. They got bummed. Well, I'm alright with Smoker getting bummed because I don't really care about Smoker as a character, but V3 Katakuri. Katakuri is one of my favorite characters, played by my favorite voice actor, and he got the Willy Willy. He actually got the Willy Willy. He's just relevance-wise, I've been generous here, guys. It's because he has the future relevance aspect to him, but right now, his practicality and his only usage or usefulness comes from being a leech captain with the V3 or V2 Blackbeard. That's the only usage this guy really has. Double V3 Katakuri is just hot garbage. He's just irrelevant. He's really just irrelevant. But his future relevancy, I have faith that he's going to come back when we start getting a barrage of Sci content. If we ever get Sci content and we need to use int units, then this Katakuri is going to start shining. Now, this Katakuri can also, if you really push yourself to the limit or you really for some reason have a bunch of time to make the teams for it, can beat hard content. He actually can beat hard content. It's just really not fun. It's not fast. It's not efficient. But he still has the potential, if that makes sense. But unfortunately for me, his relevance, his viability, his usefulness, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he deserves to be in the top 30 legends right now. Same thing goes for Smoker. Smoker, though, is a lot easier because his captain ability does not rely on you having certain HP mechanics, which are very tedious to play with. But alternatively, his attack boost is a ramping up one, going from, I believe, 4 times to 5 times, which in my opinion is not very good. I don't think that's very good. If maybe like your last 3 or only your last 2 units get that 5 times attack boost, that's a bit of a yikes. That's a bit of a yikes. I think his super type ability is not really that great either. I think he's definitely lacking in one of those, whereas Katakuri's super type ability is one of the best one, delay through anything. But Smoker's one is just extending buffs. When, you know, some units just have that built into their kit anyway. It's a bit lackluster for that Smoker, I have to say. And to get the most out of him, you really need to use both Smoker specials at the same time. That's a bit of a yikes. But to top it off, you know, he is at the end of the day a super type legend with a decent attack boost. So his future relevance is still up there. But I have to say the Smoker, I think, also is a bit of a bum. His damage numbers are not anywhere near as comparable as the top echelon of legends. So I think that's a little bit disappointing. But for me, Smoker, even on release, when that Colosseum came out, or the mini-bosses that came out for his content, which were the Moria and also the Kuma, I mean, that Kuma is not even that great. It's not even made for him. He was like the secondary legend to Sugar. So he got a bit of a bummy treatment, but that is my take on Smoker and also Katakuri. We've got Nami, we've got Sanji Judge, and we have also got Shira Hoshi and Mancherry. All 3 of them, very good subs. There's not really much else to say. Nami is still one of the very few units that can orb boost and give color affinity at the same time. Having said that, her boosts aren't necessarily the highest, and they also don't apply to all units. For example, Luffy Law will not be able to have her boost, which I think kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's one of the things I mean when I say it really does hurt Luffy Law not having that secondary typing or secondary class, and they're both primary classes in fighter and slasher. Sanji Judge, Powerhouse has fallen off a lot. They're still decent as a Powerhouse captain. They're like the premium Powerhouse sub right now, but I have to say Powerhouse has really fallen off. I don't think they're anywhere near on the same level as they used to be with, for example, Cerebral and Free Spirit. I think those two classes have really taken off and gone to Narnia, whereas, you know, Powerhouse has kind of just plateaued and stayed where they are. We have got on top of that Shira Hoshi and Mancherry. I think they were revitalized a little bit with the Blackbeard release, but since then again have a little bit dwindled off a tiny bit, and there's just so many units in the game that can get rid of the specific debuffs that you want to get rid of, and Shira Hoshi Mancherry I would not say is really ever the #1 choice to pick to get rid of debuffs, especially if you're running Colosseums, especially if you're running raids where you want to have a fast team, because their cooldown is really, really high. They're more designed for guard challenges and forests, and every now and then you might see them used on another team, but I would say that's because people are either lacking units, or it's more like they're just not really your first choice or even your second choice for debuff removal. Their kit is nice, healing is nice, but at the end of the day, how relevant is that to the content we're getting these days? Not that relevant. In the future though, perhaps they might break back into S tier. It's always possible. We have got the second row, which is going to be Luffy Ace, Inu Neko, 6+ Lucy or 6+ Sabo there, and then we've also got Whitebeard and Marco. We've got Barto Cavendish, we've got the V3 Corazon, we've got 6+ Garp, and we have also got Legend Pudding. Now let's begin with Luffy Ace. Luffy Ace I personally think are underrated. I do think they are still viable against a lot of content because Free Spirit as a class is really, really strong, but the only reason we don't see them is because they're just way better Free Spirit captains. There's absolutely no reason to use Luffy Ace unless you have no other Free Spirit captains, but if you don't have them, then yeah, they're still a great legend to use. Their switch ability is still one of the most broken switch abilities in the game. Gets rid of paralysis on themselves, get rid of despair completely on themselves, gives them a matching orb, gets rid of block orbs. I think it's still a very, 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 very good special. Still pretty solid. 4.25 times attack boost to Free Spirit. It's still no joke. You do need matching orbs, but their special is really good. Gives you a full board of matching orbs if you have color orbs, and then there's plenty of other units that give you beneficial orbs or can get rid of block orbs, especially because it's a Luffy. You can also put that support, what's her name on? Brule, that gets rid of block orbs as well. A very, very nice legend still. I think they're still decent. I think they're still decent, but obviously not S tier. Inu Neko. Yeah, Inu Neko, underwhelming switch ability, very underwhelming. They do get rid of despair, but they don't even give themselves a matching orb, which really is disappointing. Their boosts are nice, but I believe they go from attack boost plus color affinity, which is poggers. That is, I can't believe I just said poggers in a video, but that's pog. That's really cool. But then it goes into an orb boost, which I'm personally not a fan of. I don't like that. I think it should have been the other way around. Orb boost into attack boost and color affinity, because that is a lot rarer than having an orb boost. Then yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. Their attack boost is not that great, but on Cerebral teams, you might see them used every now and then. As a captain, probably not really optimal to use over Saba and Koala and other Cerebrals. Sugar is a Cerebral unit. Shanks Crew is a Cerebral unit. So yeah, there's just many, many other better alternatives for Cerebral units. 6+ Lucy. Strength, Dex, Quick Legend. 3.85 times attack boost, somewhere around that. Still solid, but doesn't really see much gameplay anymore. You know, there's many other units that are just rainbow boosters, which are just more convenient to use, way more easily accessible, and that's the downfall of Lucy. I think his special is still very nice. Cooldown reduction into following turn attack boost is always going to be nice, but the attack boost of his captain ability and the attack boost of the special is just, by today's standard, we have 4.5 times going to 5 times attack boost. He's not even 4 times attack boost, which is a bit of a shame, but he does have a nice flat attack boost. Whitebeard and Marco, kind of the same problem, but more so they're just really, really, really slow. They have a universal attack boost. They can boost other units by, I think it's 4.25 times for Sign Int. But their special ability is not that useful anymore. HP cut and healing, not that great. The damage reduction is okay if you're on the white bid form and you have increased healing with Marco, but if you look at it, you compare that to V3 Law, who has that every single turn. You don't need to switch to unlock one or the other ability, or you don't have to be in dual form, and he has a higher attack multiplier. You just look at white bid and Marco and you feel like, you know, V3 Law is the perfected version of that unit. And yeah, white bid and Marco, unfortunately for me, they have taken a lot of L's. They're probably better off as a sub now, but they're still good as a captain. I felt like they weren't worthy of S1. That's why I put them in the captain side of S2, because obviously I don't have enough space on the other right-hand column. Dex, Barto, and Fudge, I said it. I said Dex, Barto, and Cavendish. Barto and Cavendish, still a very good sub in Forests and Garp challenges, but that's pretty much all they're good for. On paper, they're the best driven captain, or one of the best driven captains, alongside Sugar, but who uses Driven? Driven is a class hated by Bandai. I don't understand why, but Bandai absolutely hates Driven. Driven has some decent pay-to-win subs, but that's pretty much it. You need to rainbow a lot of them. Even like the anniversary units that came out, the int ones, a lot of them are Driven, but they excel from being rainbowed. So I don't think they're a very accessible captain. They're very good as a sub for the zombie teams, for cheese teams, but that's pretty much all they're good for today in this day and age, is cheesing. But they're very good at it. We have got V3 Alkeji. Similar problem to Lucy, is that it's just limited to strength, dex, quick. Why not just have a unit that can boost everyone instead? But at the same time, he has a very nice kit. When you do get to use him, I think he's very, very nice. But I think there's just many other alternatives for color affinity, beg your pardon, or boost that not necessarily necessary to have this Alkeji. He's still a good captain, still very solid as a sub. That's why he's at the very top, or towards the top of A tier. Garp. Now, Garp can clear many things, but clear rate is not really important to me in this tier list anymore. I think a lot of units can clear many things, especially if you go out of your way to spend a lot of time to team build for them, sure, but that's not efficient, that's not practical, it's just not very viable to do that all the time unless you have all the time in the world. So Garp, very nice sub, pretty good support, and to top it off, he can be used as a captain for many pieces of content, although I do not recommend it because he's a good, great, perfect captain. Shout out to Good, Great, Perfect podcast. We were on there. We did actually discuss some of these legends, so please do go ahead and check it out. The link is in the description down below. But yeah, Garp, still a solid legend, but again, I would not put him in the top 30 legends of the game. We have got Legend Pudding. Now, Legend Pudding, when she first came out, I severely overrated her because back then I really cared about hypotheticals. Back then, on paper, I said she could be the best legend in the game because she can copy any buff, she can get rid of block off, she gets rid of silence, and all that stuff on herself, and she rolls forwards everyone's cooldown by 1, which is a really, really good special, and her cooldown overall is really low. The reality was that we didn't get any content that really punished you with interrupts, so there was no need to copy units because that was the whole point of Pudding, is that she can use a copied ability without being interrupted. And the only time that has really proven to be useful were in very, very limited scenarios and very specific teams, which, for example, would be the Kid Forest, certain Garp challenges if you're running very specific teams. But otherwise, there's just so many alternatives that you don't really need to use this Pudding anywhere, any shape or form, unfortunately speaking. I would love to see her used more because I think she has the potential to be one of the greatest of all times, but that's something to be left on paper right now. I don't think, practically speaking, she is one of the most useful units in the game. She is not necessarily one of the most viable units in the game either. She's got a decent captain ability and she has a decent support ability, so I do think she should remain in the top 50 legends. She's definitely in the top half of legends in the game, but I think some people who put her in the top 10, I think they prioritize the hypotheticals rather than the, you know, the realism of the game, which is what content are we actually getting, what is she really useful for, what is she like the first, second or third choice for. But if you want to be creative and unique with your teams, then sure, she's a fantastic legend, but I think outside of that, she's just not the efficient choice, or she's rarely ever the efficient choice or the practical choice to have in your team. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on that one. She's another controversial pick. I do not have her in the S tier. Let's move on. The A3, sorry, A3, we've got Super type Basil Hawkins, we have got the new 6 plus Jimbei, 6 plus V2 Jimbei, we have got Komanasaki, we've got Arlon Crew, we've got the V2 Alkeji and V2 Akainu. Super type Basil Hawkins, the Forest and Garp Challenge Killer. He's a very, very safe unit to use for these pieces of content, but also takes a hit from normal attack only, which you will find in these places. So unfortunately, I think he's like a very bad version of Whitebeard and Marco, V2 Katakuri, and 6 plus Usopp combined into one unit, because he does delay like that. He's a very, very slow, safe, and steady legend. But at the same time, does he really have the ability to clear many things, especially if they get hit with normal attack only? Again, normal attack only is not prevalent everywhere, but where it is prevalent, this dude takes a lot of pain. And unfortunately, I think this legend is more of a cheese legend. He's one of the best cheese legends out there, but I can't really give too many points for that. We've got the new 6 plus Jimbei, who is a flat 4 times boost with a 1.35 times HP boost, beneficial orbs in the kit as well, which is very, very nice. A 2 times attack booster going up to 2.25 times, which again is very, very nice, but you need to have a strength, dex, and psi unit. You cannot have like a full dex team. You cannot have like a dex and a strength team only, or a dex and a psi team only. You have to have each of those typings in your team, which I personally am not a big fan of. Those kind of captain abilities is very similar to Tezuro. It's very similar to Judge. I don't like those kind of things. V2 Big Mom, V1 Arlon Crew, it's just not cool. I don't think that's cool. It just makes team building a bit of a pain in the butt. And in general, 4 times attack boost is nice, 2 times attack boost is nice, but I would say that is very average by today's standards. It's like good. It's like good average for today's standards. The 2 times flat boost going on from 1.75 times. It's a lot nicer. 4 times flat boost is also very nice as well. And the same thing goes to Komanasaki. Komanasaki is a 4 times flat boost, 2 quick and int units, and of course has a very good special for them, which is a full board orb manipulation. Unfortunately, not block orbs for quick and int units, which is a 2 times attack and 2 times orb boost, which is very, very nice. And there's nothing much else to say. Flat 4 times, pretty tanky. Not a bad legend at all, but at the same time, I think there's just, unfortunately for her, quick is probably one of the strongest typings in the game right now. There's so many good quick units. So many good quick units, and I think the place for her at the 2 times, like being a 2 times orb and 2 times attack booster, when you got the 2.5 times orbs, you got the highest chain lock, you got the highest attack boost coming through, it's a bit unfortunate for Komanasaki that the highest boostings of all these other damage boosters. You got the highest chain boost in Sugar, who's a quick type. You got the because her chain boost is a little bit different. The highest chain lock, sorry, I stuttered there. Chain lock, Shanks crew. You got the highest attack boost, or Saba mask. You got the highest orb boost, Luffy Law. So it's just a little bit unfortunate for Komanasaki that quick is already stacked, and there's just many alternatives to her. But if you don't have any of those alternatives, then on paper she's superb. In practicality, maybe a little bit trickier to play with, but I think she's still a good legend. We've got Arlon Crew, a captain that I hope nobody really uses often, because on paper they seemed okay. People really tried to reach to see usages for this captain, Arlon Crew, but let's be real, guys. They're good for their switch, they're good for their sub ability because of universal attack boost, but that's pretty much all they're good for. They have cooldown reduction in their kit, which is really nice as well, so I think you can slap this unit on many teams, but 2 times attack boost going into 2.5 times only when you're under 30% HP, that's a bit of an L. If that was maybe under 70% HP and you got a 2.5 times attack boost, that would skyrocket this Arlon Crew into S tier, towards the top of S tier, because that would be an amazing special. But this is one of those units that relies on you to be low HP to get the most out of, and that's just no bueno. It's just not very viable. It's not very fast. It's not very efficient to run those kind of units on your team, because you have to take extra precautions, or you have to take extra measures to lower your own HP, which is just making your life more difficult. As you notice, I am trying to blast through these. We have got V2 Alkeji, V2 Akainu, both premium block orb manipulators that give their respective teams orb boost and attack boost, and that's pretty much it. they have decent supports as well. That's pretty much it. Let's move on to Snake Man. We have also got, not Snake Man, we've got Tank Man, who is still decent. He's still decent, but again, same problem with Komanasaki. If you want to use him, maybe you're going to use him for quick, or you don't have any other Rainbow Captains. There's just so many other better Rainbow Captains. He's never your first, second, third, even fourth or fifth choice anymore. So yeah, he is a universal attack boost, 2 times attack boost with a bit of beneficial orbs, but that's pretty much all he can offer nowadays. He has a decent support, but then you should 6+ him into Snake Man if you want him for the support. So yeah, he's a bit unfortunate in that regard. He is free spirit, which is nice, but at the same time, there's better Luffys to run. He is a Luffy unit. That's the other drawback for him, is that he's Luffy. He's competing with all the other Luffys in the game. So I have to say, he does drop down in that regard. Frankie is a block core manipulator, which is why I put him still in A tier. Otherwise, I would have dropped him down, because he only randomizes them and doesn't make them matching. I think that's a huge L. His kit is one of the most unique in the game, and this is something I found very interesting, is when Sugar came out, everyone was saying she's super unique, but if you think about it, all of her mechanics are like very much pre-existing in the game. She goes through barriers, she ignores debuffs, and she gives you like a base stat boost and a chain boost. Those are not, honestly, if you like dumb it down to that level, if you look at it in layman's terms, is not that unique, whereas Frankie is genuinely the definition of a unique legend. He has, I think people get confused because like you have the new sprite, you know, when you have the toy soldiers, it looks unique. Some people might think that's unique, but mechanic-wise, I don't think Sugar is very unique. But Frankie, in my opinion, is the most unique legend in the game. He has different mechanics depending on which classes you're using, but I don't think being unique is necessarily a good thing. In Frankie's case, I think it's okay. He can do AoE damage, but in some cases, that might even reduce his damage depending on the classes you take. He's still a decent attack boost. He's still an okay captain. You can run him into stuff. He's just not the most prevalent or powerful unit to run anymore. 4.25 times attack boost is still solid, but unfortunately you can't use that with double Frankie. So he's a good leech captain essentially, and that's pretty much all he's good for nowadays. We have got the Cerebral Queen, which is Robin, but unfortunately she's all the way down in A tier because again, Saba, Koala are the best go-to to go for. Shanks crew are the other best go-to for cerebral units, and yeah, that's the problem with Robin. She is still pretty solid. She has a bit of orb manipulation. She has very good tanky stats. Her special ability prevents all damage taken for 1 turn, which I think is really good. And her attack boost, 2 times for 2 turns, is really good. You can tank 2 turns and you can still have 2 turns of attack boost. But there's just better alternatives in the game, unfortunately, for Robin as well. But the bonus with Robin is that she's a Robin unit, and she's a good Robin unit at that, because you can use, of course, that we're going to go into A4 support territory here. That Bartolomeo, I think a lot of people should max out his support and are unaware what he does. He reduces 3 turns of paralysis, and the 3 turn is the magical number alongside the Deadbeard, alongside the Halloween Ace. 3 turns of paralysis reduction with Cavendish and Robin. So that's very, very nice as well. And then on this row, guys, I don't think people are going to be happy with this, but this anniversary Sabo that came out, oh, no. V4 Sabo. Hot. Flame fisting hot. Garbage. This guy's relevance in the game, 0. His only relevance, guys, and this is not an exaggeration, is as a support unit. Unlike Karasu and maybe Bello Betty or someone else like that. Koala, maybe. He is just not useful anywhere, unfortunately, because right now we are not getting Dex content. We are not getting content where strength units come out supreme. Now, people thought that, you know, he can be the slave of Douglas Bullet, but what we've really seen is that Douglas Bullet doesn't need him at all. Douglas Bullet doesn't really need that extra damage from specifically a unit that only provides damage boost, because there's so many other units that offer color affinity with either another kind of boost, or on top of that they offer it with a utility part of their kit. And this Sabo, just unfortunately, he gives the 2 times strength color affinity for 1 turn, and then the next turn he gets you a chain boost and color affinity again, and that is only useful right now for Douglas Bullet teams. Anywhere else, it's just not useful. If you want to use him in Garp challenges for a mono strength team, sure, that's great, but he's definitely not the best captain to run in that. Snake Man is by far better. His super typing ability is a little bit lackluster. It's a additional tap timing damage. It's just very, very lackluster. When he came out, I think everyone was sure this was the worst one by a mile. His support ability is really nice, especially for V3 Law teams, because Karasu can go on V3 Law teams, but very, very lackluster. He's just so irrelevant right now. I have to put him all the way down here. The only reason he's not in B tier, guys, is because his captain ability is still strong. It's just not very useful right now. So his future relevance might save him. But right now, unfortunately, despite being an anniversary legend, very underwhelming, very disappointing, and I would not put him anywhere near the top 30 legends right now. And beside him, we have got Dex Sabo, who is going to see a bit more usage nowadays because he is a nice chain locker. He has a nice orb booster 3 times and 2.25 times respectively for fighter, shooters, and of course free spirit. But the big drawback of this Sabo is that he himself is not a free spirit unit, so that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. He is fighter shooter if I'm not mistaken. We have Tezuro. Tezuro is also a pretty decent Kizuna unit. He's also very good support if you are going to be using Baccarat. Gives her the 3 times chain lock with the orb boost, which I think is superb. But Tezuro, very low cooldown. You can really pretty much use him in any single Kizuna team if you need a chain locker, which will give you 4 orbs and 3.25 times chain lock. So in general, that is still useful. It's not the best, obviously. It's not the highest chain lock. It's not the best orb manipulation, but it's still very good. If you limit break plus him, he's got a decent captain ability. I highly recommend you don't limit break plus him, but he's still solid, and that's why he's still in the good/great area of legends. Now going down here, I think a bit more controversial stuff because we do have a lot of Katakuri fanboys. Myself, as I mentioned earlier, I am a very big Katakuri fan, and I'm very disappointed that he has been shafted on many occasions. Marco is also one of my favorite characters, but you know, he's just a side quick unit. Boosts them by flat 3.5 times, which goes up to 4 times if you're above 99% HP, which is not bad. It's not bad, guys, but it's just not very convenient when you have flat 4 times attack boosters. And again, when I mentioned with Komanasaki and the other quick legends, it's just that quick legends for captains, so many of them are stacked at 4 times and above already that this Marco doesn't really have a place. It's the same with Psy units as well. There's a lot of good Psy captains as well. So Marco, unfortunately, is good in that regard for being a, you know, a pseudo leech captain because he has damage reduction in his kit as well, which is nice. But overall, I gotta say, you're just never gonna see him used outside of maybe as a sub, maybe as a very last ditch leeching captain. That's pretty much it. 6+ Katakuri. A lot of people think this guy deserves to be S tier, but for me, the personal preference part, speed, simplicity, practicality, he is rock bottom. He is not a fast legend. He is not simple to play with. He's not simple to team build for either. He's just generally a pain in the ass to play with, which is a shame because when he came out, on paper, hypothetically speaking, he looked amazing. He looked absolutely wonderful. One of the best 6+s was what he was dubbed as. But the reality is, nobody wants to play with this legend. Nobody wants to farm with this legend because it's just not practical, it's not efficient, and only if you have a lot of time on your hands would you really ever use 6+ Katakuri for any piece of content. And I think that's a real big shame. He has one of the best artworks in the game. I really love Katakuri as a character, but I'm not going to be biased and say he's a top tier legend because he's not. He's just not. He's not relevant in the game right now. I don't think his future relevance is going to hold up well either, unfortunately. V2 Katakuri used to be one of the best legends in the game, but as time has changed for me, I have less time to play with the game. I'm relying a lot less on zombie teams, a lot less on cheese teams. Normal attack only completely ruined this unit. Where there is no normal attack only, you now have the power crept legends, which don't even need these kind of cheesy mechanics. Just power and brute force their way through way faster than this Katakuri. So unfortunately, I think this Katakuri's usage is just dropping. However, for the people who do like playing zombie teams and for the very cheesy strats, he will always be one of the best legends to have. But outside of that, I don't think he has any place in the game anymore in terms of the relevant endgame meta. We have got the Sci Bar Hancock. She is a 2x color affinity booster for free spirit units, which is great. That's great. She has delay and a bit of fixed damage in her kit, and that's pretty much it. But reality speaks once again, that's not too useful because outside of the color affinity, delay is not very much accepted in the game right now. The game is like, nope, we're going to cock block that delay, and then, what, 250,000 fixed damage, whatever it is. And that's not very good. No one cares about that. No one cares about that. And then to top it off, 2x color affinity boost. While that is solid, don't get me wrong, Free Spirit has a lot, and I mean a lot, of color affinity boosters. So there's just many alternatives to her. She can occasionally be first pick priority, especially if you're running a Psy team that's not super type Boa but V3 Law, then you might want to use her. But if you are running a Psy team into Ink content, then you obviously got that super type Boa, so you have no place for this Boa. But yeah, we have got a lot of color affinity boosters. A limited rare recruit, the new limited rare recruit, Alvida, is a 2.25 times color affinity booster, offers a lot better stuff than this Boa Hancock, which is a shame. Of course, it only works against delay protection or debuff protection enemies, but that's a very, very common place to be. So yes, unfortunately, I think this Boa Hancock does drop down significantly. I do think her relevancy might go up in the future. She's also very good in PvP as well, so we'll have to keep our eye on her. But yeah, for me, not the #1 pick for color affinity on Free Spirit. And these units down here, I was very tempted to knock A5 and A6, because again, there's just too many legends in A tier. I would not have any qualms with knocking down A5, especially A6, all the way down to B tier, because B tier for me is what I would label as the average legends. Like, this is the new average, this is the new base standard in 2020, and I think a lot of us are like still living in the past of like, oh yeah, these legends are like decent. But what is decent? Decent is average, right? Like, these are the new equivalents of our average. We're not looking at like the age of Log Luffy anymore, where they dominated in the past, but we're looking at these kind of legends as the new average standard. And in fact, like, comparing them to the legends that come out today, these are all well below average nowadays. So I would happily say all of these legends in A5 and A6 could easily just be B tier. Let me know your thoughts on that, but I decided to keep them in anyway because, you know, they're still okay. You've got Sanji, who is good for fighters. He still does have a decent damage output. He's still good against int units, like int enemies. But if you have other Psy units, we are starting to get better Psy captains, and he's still a good go-to. If you don't have them, I mean, if you don't have them, he's still a good go-to. But if you have them, he is somewhat redundant. He relies on you to have over 50% HP. He has nothing else other than damage, which is a bit of a shame, but that is pretty much the Sanji in a nutshell. Easily could be B tier in my opinion. Same thing with V2 Mihawk. He's just pure raw damage. He's a chain boosting captain with no flat boost other than a 1.75 times, which is very, very mediocre. I think he's also mediocre as well. We've got Zorro. And the big drawbacks of all of these characters down here, including Capone, including Mihawk, including Sanji, is that fighter, slasher, and shooters, they're all dead classes. They're not as dead as Driven. Actually, maybe Driven's even better than them. I think Slasher is probably the most dead class right now, even below Shooters. I genuinely think Slashers are really, really poor. Fighters are okay. We have got some decent fighter units, but Sanji is definitely not the best fighter captain anymore. And then Shooters, yeah, they're a bit of a meme. Unless you limit break them all, rainbow them all fully, then they're decent. But Zorro, Capone, again, the tanky captains, they're slow and steady captains. Not a big fan of that. I don't think they're that useful today. Nowhere near. Like, they are universes away from the likes of, like, Shanks crew. Like, they're so far apart in how good they are. I would happily put all of these legends in B tier. Onami, Shira Hoshi, and Jimbei. Now, Jimbei is one of the better 6+s we have got. He does remove a whole array of annoying enemy, you know, defense up, the damage reduction and stuff like that. I think that's very, very useful, and he gives good orb manipulation. But we have got a lot of good subs now, like Bobbin. We've got Wano Usopp. We've most recently got the new, did I say Robin? We have Robin, Bobbin. We have Robin and Bobbin. We have Wano Usopp, who removes all three of them. We've got Vivi Rebecca, who also removes that kind of stuff. We've got Purarine, who removes them. So we've got rare recruits now. We're also getting more free-to-play units that can remove these buffs that enemies have. And looking at Jimbei, he can remove those things. He offers orb manipulation to fighters and fighters only. He doesn't get rid of block orbs, which is unfortunate. And he gives a bit of damage. So ultimately, all he does is the removal. That's the main crux of his ability, and I think there's just too many replacements now, so I'm okay with him being in B tier. And on the scope of legends, if a legend is worse than a rare recruit, what is that really saying? Are they really worthy of being in A tier? That's something I also have in the back of my mind. Shira Hoshi, a very good cheese legend. She's also very good as a captain, as a cheese legend. But at the end of the day, ultimately, she's a cheese legend. She'll give you a full board of matching orbs and a full set of healing, which, honestly speaking, is only good in this day and age if you're going to be doing like go-up challenges or forest. It hasn't got a place in Kizuna battle. It doesn't really have a place in endgame Colosseums or endgame raids. So, in that sense, not that practical, not that useful, and not that viable against the whole array of endgame content. Same thing with Onami. She cannot be used most of the time because most places either have full debuff protection or defense down debuff protection, or if they don't have debuff protection, well, if they don't have a debuff protection, then you can use so many different other conditional boosters because you can only have one conditional boost active at any one time. So, unfortunately for Onami, she's just easily replaceable. The only benefit of her is that she is a Nami and she has many good support units to top it off. And that also works as a double-edged sword because there's many other Namis which are very good for utility that you can bring instead. So that is that. I try to keep it as concise as possible, but it's still been an extremely long video, guys. Those are my thoughts on A tier. Anybody else that didn't make it to A tier is not an accident. I intentionally did not leave them out. Examples, maybe like Magellan, 6+ Usopp. I know a lot of people like them. Brook. I think they're all cheese legends now, and those should only really exist in the realm of B tier. That's the only usage they have. Most of the time, you don't need them. Most of the time, they're very easily replaceable. In fact, all of the time, you never need these legends. You will only use these legends depending on your personal preference and playstyle. And that, for me, is a criteria that does not matter if you are a cheese legend. That does not give you any bonus points for me anymore. I don't have the time to play around and mess around with cheese legends anymore, which is unfortunate, but, you know, it is what it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let's take a look at S tier again. This is the old S tier. We have culled and eliminated so many legends from the S tier, and now it's all the way down to a fixed top 30. These are my top 30 legends in One Piece Treasure Cruise. There are some legends in A tier which I do think can contend for that S tier position. I think Smoker. I think everyone in A1 could very much easily be in S tier. That's what I will say. Anyone below A1, I do not think is worthy of that S tier position, but they are very much strongly at the top of A tier. But the ones in A1, they're all worthy of S tier, arguably all worthy of S tier and better than Nami Robin. But in terms of, as I said, guys, my own personal conditions that I have here, the stipulations, it's very, very important to me that I stick to this. Usefulness and viability, and especially relevance and future relevance. These two criteria are so important. I think this is the most important thing for most people in general. Like when you pull a legend, you want that legend to be good in that moment when you pull that, and you want them to be good for a long time. You don't want a legend that is good for like 2 weeks and then they never see play again. That kind of sucks. So I think that is very, very important. And that's essentially what it is. Usefulness and viability versus endgame content. So the content you get now is basically the endgame content. And then relevance plus future relevance to the game. Very important as well. Accessibility, practicality, and personal preferences all fall in that umbrella term of personal preferences. Because if you're paid to win, then you will have all the units available to you, and that stuff will matter less. If you have limit break plus for everyone, that stuff matters less to you, so keep that in mind as well. And again, it depends. Are you the type of person that wants to mess around in forests or build lots of different teams and be creative with your teams? In that case, hypothetical and niche uses is a very, very big plus for you. But if you want to be practical and you want to be efficient with your time, then that kind of stuff gets pushed all the way down, and then practicality, speed, safety, all that stuff is much higher up on your priorities. So yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions, guys. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I would say most people, again, I'm always confident in my tier list, is that most people, if you were to move any of these units, not this one, sorry, any of these units plus or minus one up or down, I think almost everyone will agree completely with the tier list. And I don't think there's any unit that's really disproportionately displaced anywhere or misplaced anywhere. Maybe like 2 tiers in the wrong position. I would say it's only a plus or minus 1 difference of like S3, S4, S5, something like that. Let me know your top 5 legends as well, guys. Top 5 legends. Who are your top 5? Because again, I will repeat, mine are in this order: Shanks Crew, V2 Snake Man, V3 Law, Osoba Mask, and then Vivi and Rebecca as my top 5 legends. Luffy Law potentially joint 5th with the Vivi and Rebecca. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I hope that has been helpful. I hope that has been enjoyable as well, guys. Sorry for the stuttering. Sorry for all the drilling in the background as well. And apologies, this is a really long video, but if you do make it towards the end, thank you so much for watching, because it's a very long video. Or thank you so much for listening. And yeah, have a wonderful day. And yeah, bye-bye. Remember, #DunkerYoshi. Bye-bye.